Good afternoon. I'm Gretchen Groebel with the Radnor Conservancy. I'm their executive director, and I'm here with Ed Hincken, the facilities manager at Chanticleer Garden. And today we're going to talk about some of their sustainable practices that they implement. So can you tell us about the visitor pavilion? It's really one of the first places that someone would encounter when they come into the garden.
Right, exactly. So when people first come here, they come to this pavilion, and we built this, I would say 7 or 8 years ago, and it was basically to protect the visitor service employees from the sun and from wind and the cool. So when we built it along the same lines as, we took the same lines from the house, so we took all of our cues from that. We used reclaimed lumber with all of the flooring, so it's all longleaf yellow pine purchased by Sylvan Brandt in Lidditz, PA. We made it as compact as possible. It's not really visible from a lot of other areas of the garden. The roof tiles are from a building that we tore down, Minder, so we reused all of them. The rooster on top was made by one of our gardeners, Pashemek Volchek, who is also a metal worker as well as an outstanding gardener. And underneath it, there's a 300-gallon cistern that collects all the rainwater that we have hooked up to a faucet and an on-demand pump. Next, we'll show you what we do with the stormwater management for the parking lot and the other drainage areas that we have. Irrigation purposes.
And so does someone, when they need extra water, do they? So Ed, we're here in front of one of your greenhouses and 2 of the large cisterns. Can you talk a little bit about how this helps Chanticleer Garden deal with some of the stormwater management?
Sure. So we're sitting in front of 2 12,500-gallon cisterns. We use these to collect stormwater runoff from the parking lot. Okay. So when the parking lot was built in '92, it didn't call for any kind of stormwater remediation. So we took it upon ourselves to do stormwater remediation to help the streams. So we put a large perforated pipe that holds 10,000 gallons, and we collect the water in that. It has 2 feet of crushed stone all around it, which is also part of the storage. When we realized that really wasn't doing all that we needed it to do, we put these cisterns in, and through a fairly simple but in the same sophisticated way, through a series of floats, we have a sump pump into that large pipe that I was speaking about. And when these tanks are empty or low, one of the floats tells it that, and it fills these up. Once these are full, another float goes off, and it'll stop pumping into here. This is all tied into our irrigation system that feeds the tennis court garden, the cut flower garden. It goes over to the potting shed, and even does some of the irrigation in Bell's Woodland. And it all is tied in automatically, that when these are empty, it switches over to the well.
Wow,
and
that's
when,
great.
It really was a great system. It just pretty much filled on the last rain we had the other day.
And is this Bell's Run, the stream or the creek that runs through the property? And I think, and you can confirm, does that tie into the Darby Creek?
Yes, it all empties into that.
All of these practices help the Darby Creek, floods, and people downstream have major difficulties when we have excess rain or flooding. So it's really important to help slow the pace of the water going into any kind of tributaries or creeks. So that's fabulous.
Right. In addition to the cisterns and the storage pipe that we spoke of, we also paved the road from this picnic house all the way to the potting shed, and that's paved with a porous paving material.
So can you talk about what does that mean, or could someone use something like that, in their own garden path, or so? What is that?
Yeah, so it's you get LEED certification points for it, so it's really sustainable and environmental, and it's just reclaimed lumber and gravel mixed with a organic polyurethane binder, and it's just mixed up and it's laid down like you would lay concrete, and it gets floated, and I think for every square foot it absorbs for every square foot, it takes 20 gallons per minute.
Wow.
So instead of, it's a 2-inch cover, but dependent upon how much storage you put underneath it. So when we excavated for it, we excavated anywhere between 12 to 22 inches.
Wow.
We excavated the older paths until we found soil, so that as the water goes into the storage area, hopefully it'll perk into the ground and actually get to the aquifers and to the springs. And that has gone a long way in helping. So if this 10,000 gallon tank does reach its limit and these tanks are full, the overflow would go into this porous pave area, and then that's just another storage area.
Okay. So for homeowners that want to help control some of their stormwater runoff, how could they, use the idea of something like this, but on a smaller scale? Could they, I know a lot of people have heard a lot about rain barrels. Do you have a sense of, could this easily be retrofitted for the, Radnor residents to help manage their,
Yeah. I mean,
runoff?
this is, right. This is nothing but a rain barrel.
Okay.
I mean, in the simplest form, a rain barrel is your downspout into a cistern that you get out either with a hose and gravity or scoop with a bucket. So this is pretty much the same thing. We're just pumping the water into it from a different area, and instead of taking it out with a hose and a faucet, we have it hooked up to an irrigation system. So it's a little bit more sophisticated, but it's also really the same thing, that anything you can stop from becoming stormwater is just beneficial to all the points that you brought out, especially to the Darby Creek and all the people that live along there.
Right, and the area that we live in, so many people have streams or creeks behind them, and some of these practices would really help in slowing down the water that that tends to run off. So thank you for covering that. What's next on our hit list?
We could show you the solar panels that we installed.
All right.
We installed 144 of them to just make things as green as we can.
Okay.
One of the issues we have is because most of our houses are historic, and the gardens are really the whole idea of us being here, and we try and keep it to be the same as when the Rosengardens lived here. So we don't do anything to the houses that wouldn't be historically correct. So even though we have a lot of good roof with solar exposure, we would never cover Chanticleer with solar panels, because it would take away from what our mission statement is.
Aesthetic.
So we can go to our maintenance building that we built in 2003, and you can see pretty much where we store everything, another greenhouse, more cisterns, and the solar panels.
All right, great. Let's head over.
Okay. Yeah, so this is a different point that you're more than much. I really like this. Can't really drive it.
So Ed, we're down at one of the maintenance areas at Chanticleer Garden. And can you tell us about some of the sustainable practices that go on here, starting with some of your installation of solar panels? When did you guys, investigate that?
Bad question. But anyway, I would say probably around 2006. I'm not sure if you can see them on the building that we built in 2003. We put up 144 solar panels. They generate 18% of the electricity for the entire property. We have over a dozen buildings here, so it's a pretty substantial amount of electricity we're generating. So we did that obviously to help out with electric costs, and it's non-polluting. I mean, they're absolutely amazing. We actually have a very smaller system down at another building, and we did that in the year 2000. And that really just sort of helps offset the cost of a pump that we have that runs 24/7 down at the ponds. So it helps temper that. So we're always trying to figure out how to cut costs, how to be innovative in sustainability. We built this greenhouse in 2011, and it's just the glass is such a high-tech glass that on a day like today, it's not any hotter in there than it is out here. So it's very energy efficient to keep warm in the winter. And obviously we don't really grow in the summer, so most of these are used for overwintering.
I know that a lot of the plants are moved into the greenhouses they winter over there. So the greenhouses are really, they're highly used, correct?
Oh, they're
Yeah.
packed. They're absolutely
Yeah.
packed. And we have a really cool system that we came up with where we irrigate all the water that we irrigate that runs off goes into a sump pump system, which is similar to the last cisterns, and it's pumped into a 7,000 gallon cistern, and then it's reused for irrigation.
Wow.
And it's also taking the rainwater off of the majority of this greenhouse. So
Okay.
we're cutting off rainwater runoff as well as reusing everything that we've already watered.
So this is something that the regular homeowner could, kind of retrofit for themselves. They could, put solar panels on. They could, what else?
Yeah, I mean, the solar panels, I'm just surprised that everybody doesn't have solar panels
Yeah.
because it's really the only thing you buy for your house that actually has a payoff period.
Okay.
They're warranted for 20 years, and I just don't understand why everybody wouldn't have that, but obviously we don't have them. But it's just, I think as far as depending if you had a greenhouse, you could set up an irrigation system like that on a smaller scale.
Or someone could definitely investigate, a similar type of glass if they had.
Yeah, right.
If they're
right.
replacing windows, it might be something to consider.
Right. The company that does this is Solar Innovations, where I can never remember where they're from.
Okay.
But they're in Pennsylvania and they work internationally.
Okay.
And everything that's here is made in their shop. I think the only thing when they were doing this was they couldn't get bolts. They weren't making their own bolts. Everything else they do in the United States by Americans. They're a platinum lead business about 2 hours away from here. And before each one of these go out, they have a big warehouse where they assemble the entire
Wow.
building, mark everything, so when it comes out, it's
Okay.
just a really easy build. We can't say enough about them. They're also the one who did the retrofit at the picnic house and are just cutting edge in the world of greenhouses. And even though this is just a commercial overwintering one, if you just look at the finish on it, that they really, they just take everything to the next level.
Well, I can see that a lot of the plants have just moved out of the greenhouse. It looks like they're getting ready to be planted. Do you have a sense of what happens with all of the containers after the
Right.
plants are planted? What do you, that's a lot of plastic. What do you, what kind of, can you recycle this? Or
We do.
how do you
Yep.
do that?
We recycle all of these. We take everything, we wash it off first, and we take it to a company, Revolutionary Recyclers. There's one in Philadelphia, and I believe there's one in Allentown. So it is sort of the non-green aspect of the green horticultural world, having all this plastic.
Right.
But it can be recycled. All of these pieces are recycled, and they're all the same numbers that Radnor Township collects.
Okay.
We just generate so many of them, we just don't feel it's fair to be putting out that amount.
Okay.
So
Well, that's good to
we
know.
take them all to the recovery center.
Good to know
Recycling
that
center.
it's recycled and reused for something else. I think we're going to head down and check out your composting area next.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Okay.
And what happens here? It looks like a lot of composting is going on here.
Right,
So,
so
can
this-
you explain that?
Yep. So this is our service area, and we have it's called O2 composting, but it's, I don't know if sophisticated is the right word, but it's sort of automated. So it gives us a commercial type of composting. So it speeds things up from what you would traditionally do in your yard of just putting things in there and turning it.
So can you, before you go into that, just tell us basically what's the idea, the basic idea of composting? We were just at where the interns have lunch, and we had seen a trash can, and it looked like, there was all kinds of stuff in the trash can that you had mentioned comes over to the compost bin. So what goes in there?
Right. So in a regular composting system, all vegetable matter, all plants, vegetable matter will break down into something that really helps the soil structure. It's good for everything about plants. I mean, so when people throw that away, if they have a space to compost, they throw away some really important nutrients for their garden, and then they go out and they buy important nutrients for their gardens in a bag and put it around. Whereas if
So
they
it's
just
kind of counterintuitive,
yes,
slightly.
yeah, that would be a good way of putting it. So down here, nothing leaves our property except for
Wow.
maybe invasive plants that we don't want to get mixed in with our compost.
Okay.
So These are just all like some of the cooler weather plants that have been removed for the summer display, grass clippings, all of our vegetable matter, just as you showed, like all of the buildings, everyone composts no matter what building they live in. We also, because this is a little bit more sophisticated of a system with oxygen that's introduced, we're able to do compostable glasses and plates that you can kind of see. They look like plastic, but they're actually compostable. We use compostable silverware if we have events. And because this system is more controlled, we actually do bones and meat. We can actually take it like to the next level.
And for the I think for the normal homeowner, and if they're, doing a small compost bin, that is not recommended.
It's not recommended.
This is a professional system.
Right.
But that's incredible.
Right.
And you had mentioned the compostable plates and silverware that you use. People can search for that and make the choice. It might cost a little bit more, but they can make the choice to have something that breaks down and doesn't last for 150 years in a landfill. So
right.
I think that's incredible.
Right. Eco Products is the company that we buy from, and we buy them online.
Okay.
And yes, they're more expensive than the other ones you buy, but if you're trying to be a good steward, you don't want to be buying plastic that's made out of petroleum products. So these are all plant-based, plant waste-based, and break down within naturally. So you don't leave anything. And even if you don't compost them, even if they go into a landfill, as you say, they're not there for
the
200
next 100 years.
Right.
Okay.
So they're actually breaking down into, I'm not sure if they become nutrients again, like the way this compost is, but they're not petroleum products locked underground anymore.
And do you have a sense of how long, I see that it's staged, so it evolves into, different stages. How long will this cook, and then, you move it to the next stage? Do you have a sense of that?
Right. Well, when they get this, and then it's just like, here's a collection bin. And then when we have enough, it starts getting layered with brown leaves, wood chips, the green material, and it's layered in that fashion with this oxygen that's introduced. I don't know week-wise how many it takes, but this really speeds up from what you would normally have in your yard, and nothing really leaves our property, and everything that we remove is here. I think I'd read before where almost 1 out of every 4 trucks that goes to a landfill is stuff that could be compostable. So it's really like you're paying for something good to go to a landfill through your taxes, and then you're going out and you're buying a similar sort of product to put around your house.
So Ed, I know we were up at the house where the interns and gardeners lunch, and you guys have meetings there, and I noticed that no one has a plastic water bottle. Everyone is using like a water filtration system where they're filling up their reusable water bottle. And at the Conservancy, we're really trying to message to the public how important it is to reduce our plastic use. Can you talk about that system?
Sure. We think that's great. And our sustainable practices start at the top. The director, Bill Thomas, is very keen on that and very supportive of all the things that we like to do in facilities, and as the same with horticulture. So, but everybody is of green mind here. So we found them, it was bottleless.com, and it just hooks up to your water system, and there's a filter that you can use if we change them every 6 months. And they chill the water, and we have some that actually heat the water as well. But that way, if everybody just has their own bottle, they're able to just stop in, fill it, and it's just chilled water that has been filtered and just eliminates all those plastic bottles.
And I know that change is hard, and but once you implement one change, it does become easier, and I think it makes such an incredible impact on the environment to use refillable water bottles. Well, Ed, thank you so much for sharing some of the sustainable practices that Chanticleer Garden implements on a daily basis. It's it's important as executive director of the Radnor Conservancy to share this kind of information and resources with our residents, and we hope that people will, start to take on these practices themselves and come here and enjoy some of the natural assets and beauty of this area. So thank you so much.
Yeah, well, you're welcome, and I hope everyone does take advantage of coming here, and if they pick up anything from this and do anything to help, it would all been worthwhile, but it was fun.
Yeah, thanks,
Thank
Ed.
you. Yeah.